I love saving you money on life, health, car insurance, you name it. But what I really enjoy doing is going ahead and answering questions you may have about insurance. Today, I got a question that really struck a chord, and it was a good question. The question being, what are some common car insurance myths that are costing you money? Let's learn more. The first myth we have here is that color determines price as far as insurance. There's this myth floating around for a very long time that the color of a car plays a major role in determining exactly how much the insurance premium or rate is going to be for that particular vehicle. That you may have a car that's white versus a car that's red in a given model, and that the red car is going to be just more expensive to insure. Now, there's several reasons why this is and isn't true, but the one thing I want to dispel is that it's just not something tied to the car's color. It's really more tied to the expense or the cost of the car. If you have a car that has a color red that is more expensive to insure, it's probably driven by the reason that it costs more in the first place to color that car red. Not necessarily anything to do with just the color, but rather the way that it was priced initially. Additionally, too, there's a lot of factors, a lot of things that go into how car insurance is priced. We're talking about the age of the driver, we're talking about experience of the driver, we're talking about driving record, we're talking about moving violations, we're talking about different things such as location that tie into exactly how car insurance costs, premiums, etc. are calculated. The color of a car is just simply one more factor, but it is not as massive a factor as most people think it is. Here's the second myth that we have, that older people will pay more for car insurance. Now, this myth is kind of one of those things I think is tied to the fact that we do not have a distinguished, or category that's quote unquote older. We include a lot of ages when we say older. So for example, are we talking about older drivers that are probably near that legal age where they should be deciding not to drive because of health conditions or other issues that happen as we age? Or are we talking about all older drivers? Because if we're talking about all drivers that are just technically older, that's not necessarily true. The longer you've been with an insurance company, more likely to get a discount. The more experience you have as a driver, the more likely you are to get a discount. These things are written, they are good, they are ways to save money. So don't necessarily buy the idea that older drivers pay more for insurance. I think that's more of a misconception than it is reality. Here's the third myth, that your credit score has no impact on your car insurance premium or cost. Here's some bad news. If you're prone to not paying your bills, you're the type of person that goes and you miss deadlines, then that will play a part in most states regarding your car insurance rates or premiums. You have to take into account that when people go to insure you, they're looking and saying, hey, is that person a risk? There is no greater risk, arguably, financially, than a person who doesn't pay bills. And having a history of not paying bills is detrimental to your credit score. That credit score is one of the factors used for providing a quote or underwriting you. So you got to make sure that if you have bills, that you're staying on top of them. If we're talking about just even sending the minimal amount to show good faith, make sure to do that. It all comes back to saving you money on car insurance or other forms of insurance when they take into account your credit score. Make no mistake about it. Car insurance is getting more expensive. Now, here's the thing. Car insurance is also easily amendable. If you have a car insurance policy you're not happy with, you can always shop around. And you can always take a look at companies that provide the exact same thing at a different price and maybe give you different combinations that are more acceptable to you. I made a great video. This video is super informative regarding the best car insurance companies for any given age. Whether you're an older driver or a teenage driver, whether you're a military veteran, we got you covered. Make sure to take a look at that video. It is very thorough and in depth, explaining exactly which company is the best for which category of driver. Your car insurance will cover your car if it is stolen, hail, if a tree falls on it. It is just going to be covered by insurance. And now this here is once again tied to misinterpretation of when insurance coverages are in place. We have generally what's referred to as general liability or basic coverage, right? In this instance, it's to protect the other person. You hit somebody else, you're going to cover their bills. You're going to destroy somebody else's property while driving, you're going to pay for those repairs. because you're insuring your liability. That doesn't mean that if your car's stolen or something falls on it that it's going to be covered, right? We need something more. And generally what we refer to as full coverage. In reality is comprehensive. Comprehensive coverage does cover a lot of these things, but then you also have to take into account the cost of that insurance. If we're dealing with a car that is under a loan, then the person who loaned you money is going to ask to see that fully or under comprehensive insurance. However, if you're just a regular person driving around, you have a car, you have to start asking yourself, at what point does it make sense to not even take comprehensive coverage? Because the cost of the vehicle to replace is going to be less than it would be to provide comprehensive insurance. This is a very real question depending on your situation, age of car, and location. So make sure to constantly review that financial aspect to decide whether comprehensive is even worth for you. But do not make the assumption that coverage is going to automatically provide you protection against hail and all these other things. It comes down to the type of policy you have in place. Make sure you're knowledgeable about that. Myth 5, you only need the minimum amount of insurance coverage required by law. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Think about it for a moment. You have the basic legal requirement for insurance. It says you have to have this much protection as far as liability. Does that make sense for your situation? Does that make sense if you're running a business and the loss of a vehicle is going to set you back? It may very well be worth your time and effort to go ahead and just simply take out comprehensive in that situation. Additionally, the minimum coverage may not necessarily meet your requirements as far as liability. If you're a type of person who is concerned about perhaps incurring bills because someone else was injured because their limits were, or your limits rather, were surpassed, then you might want to look into stronger coverage as opposed to just the basic liability or the minimum requirement that's asked for in most states and territories. Myth number 6 is a good one. It's the assumption or the belief that if a person is driving your car, that they're a licensed driver, that their insurance will pay for damages on your car if they damage it. Now, this is kind of a gray area because it depends on the state that you live in. In some instances, you could say that the person who's driving your car is the name insured, so they're going to be covered under their policy while driving your vehicle. However, you can't always make the assumption that insurance is handled that way in all states and places. It is very important to make sure to take a simple moment before lending someone your vehicle to confirm that that is the case. It may very well not operate that way, so make sure to look into this. Don't just assume that it's always the rule of thumb that it works that way. Ran into an interesting story someone shared with me regarding an angry spouse. The angry spouse intentionally damaged the vehicle that they own together. Now think about that for a moment. That is a horrendous situation for everyone involved. And chances are that you may very well have seen or know someone who has been in the exact same situation. And there's a way to handle that because there's a lot of things at stake here. Make sure to take a look at a video I made earlier in which I broke down exactly how to best handle that situation, how to best take a angry spouse, destroyed something, how to think about that, how to process that, because it is that important of a moment. Make sure to watch the video to clarify some things for you on that. Myth number 7, military members pay more for car insurance. This here is one of those things that is 100% true, but not true, and it's in that weird place or location. Military members tend to be younger, so younger people pay more for car insurance. It's just a risk. Additionally, military members tend to be male, not always. However, right, think about this for a moment. Males pay more for car insurance. So younger driver, male driver, you put 2 and 2 together and now you're paying more for car insurance. However, it is not because of military status that's causing this. Additionally, too, there's other things that come into play. Military members oftentimes live in rural places which have lower premiums. Military members, because most military locations, of course, are located away from larger cities, right? Not always, but I would say oftentimes enough. Military bases are located in rural places. This helps drive down the cost of insurance. Just not enough hazards or things to justify charging a higher premium. Additionally, too, military members have access to USAA. USAA is a phenomenal company, as well as the Navy Fed and other companies that may very well provide insurance that is specifically underwritten with them in mind. So don't always make the assumption that military members pay more for car insurance. That's not necessarily true all the time. Here's our final myth, that your car insurance will cover you in the event that you're driving a side gig. You're doing Uber or you're doing Turo or one of these things, make sure to think about that thoroughly. Car insurance companies are in the habit of having clearly defined risks. When they interview you and they take questions, they're looking to see exactly what the risk profile is that you have. So if you're driving a side gig and adding extra miles to your car, they're gonna wanna know about that. And chances are that they're gonna wanna either charge you significantly more or straight up say they're not gonna insure you for that reason. Now, my advice here is to always check with your insurance company to see exactly what's happening. Just be upfront with them, because the worst thing that you can happen is for them to discover that you were doing these things and now you have some sort of omission or some sort of issue that you left out that may come back to haunt you. Car insurance is expensive. We know that, but you need to drive. You need to go deliver and do all these things. How about you take a look at a video I made earlier in which I break down exactly how to get cheap motorcycle insurance. Now, I know you're saying, hey, listen, motorcycle insurance, I'm looking here for car insurance. We're talking about car insurance. What are you telling me about motorcycle insurance? Because if you're doing a side gig, it may very well be more beneficial to take a moped and pay a significantly lower insurance cost and incur less risk for your primary vehicle. I want to go ahead and take a moment to say thank you for watching. Additionally, if you thought the video was very useful, go ahead and smash that like button. It really helps grow the channel as well. Make sure to comment. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear your thoughts, places and locations or moments that you thought that I was incorrect. Give me feedback here. I always appreciate it. Lastly, make sure that if you haven't done so, subscribe. It helps grow the channel and I would be very grateful for your support. And of course, share the content with others that may have questions or may have misconceptions that you want to go ahead and clarify, or maybe just kind of be like, hey, I told you so. Till next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.